So, episode 56, released as 53 something. One of the things that I really have been wanting to talk about for a while, because I know that we don't want to talk about anything serious. I do kind of want to talk about people a little bit, because I don't know about you, but I'm a person, and I've been thinking about how I react to things and how people react to things and how that's both good and bad and how we all need to just be patient with each other a little bit. Anyway, that ties into the thing that we were talking about just before we started recording, which is you hold yourself to too high a standard. Relax, man. You're good enough.
All right. Well, I'm not drunk enough yet for this conversation, so
You're supposed to pre-drink, man.
Start the game already!
So tonight for our reunion tour, I have Fudgy Brownie Sundae Nitro Stout flavored strong beer,
ooh.
which actually has instructions on it that says, it's on here somewhere. I don't know. I forget. Somewhere on here it says, shake well and pour hard. So this could be a disaster. R.I.P. my keyboard.
Mm. Well, I am mixing whiskeys, and to be more accurate, I'm mixing mixed whiskeys. Side tangent related. I don't know if, I've done something that has forced my YouTube algorithm to take on more of a patriotic bent. I don't normally pay much attention to like the default home tab.
Oh,
but
there's one of those?
The non-subscriptions tab, right?
Oh,
the main one. But I've skipped over it and sort of flipped through it a few times in the past couple of weeks. And one thing that I've had repeatedly show up to the point where like I saw 10 of them before I clicked on one and decided, okay, fuck it, I'm going to watch it, is videos made by people in places like Ireland that do blind sort of A/B taste testing of like Irish whiskeys versus Canadian whiskeys and stuff like that.
There's a group that does that kind of thing that I've seen a couple of times that are really amusing.
Yeah.
There's like a couple of couples, I think, and they sort of go back and forth between the two of them. Is that the stuff you're watching?
Yeah. I've seen some like that. I watched about 4 or 5 different variations on it of people drinking, first of all, sort of that sort of couples friendly kind of thing, where it was mostly people from Ireland surprised and, the not unanimously, but like significantly favored the Canadian whiskeys over the homegrown Irish stuff. And I know a lot of that boils down to, the shit that you're testing, right? If you're sticking to the brand name stuff, you're probably not getting anything close to the best from either country. But also like some sort of snobby hipster, like Scotch tasting channels that take themselves super seriously and stuff. I don't know why this has ended up in my feed, but I was thinking about it when I went shopping at the corner store for booze, because it's been so long since we've recorded. I've got nothing. I've got the same half bottle of Tito's vodka that I didn't finish off the last time we recorded, and that tequila with the hat on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ooh.
So I picked up just a couple of tall boys. I've got Crown Royal whiskey and cola, and I've got Jameson ginger and lime.
Oh, I have one of those. They're good. The ginger and lime one is good, but it's pretty strongly ginger flavored, which I like. Not everybody's going to be down for that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I like ginger. Yeah, it definitely feels like instead of doing like a ginger ale, you're using
it's a ginger beer.
Yeah, like a Werner's.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actual ginger something.
Yeah, that's tasty.
I actually quite like them. They're very nice in the summer at the end of a nice long hot day.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Jameson fan, but that's not bad at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Blackbush myself. Insert joke here.
Yep. All right. So you wanted to talk about people. Is this the section where we do the intervention about why I haven't edited any of the shows that we've recorded? And it's been
No.
5 months.
You know what? I was thinking about that actually as I was fetching my drink from the fridge, and I thought, do I say something? And then I think, because we always have a little conversation over Discord or something before we record, and like your reasoning for not really wanting to go back over those episodes, I think makes a lot of sense in that they were very topical for the time, which is the world is on fire. And like, let's keep it light. So I'm let's jettison those, because most of the stuff we talk about is very time not sensitive, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it's timely. Everything we were talking about is like over and everybody's forgotten about it.
Well,
So,
and some of the stuff that wasn't timely got so flavored by the timely stuff. Like we did, for the audience here, like we did a episode where we recorded like a book review on the first 3 books of the John Scalzi Old Man's War series. And
I enjoyed that talk.
yeah, maybe I'll try and pull that out. But even that was so heavily weighted down by, the comparisons to some of the
Current
contemporaries
events.
and current events, but also just sort of the conservative slant a lot of like comparable writers have. And it was just, in hindsight, exhausting. So maybe I'll pull snippets of that out. We'll do sort of like a from the vault kind of filler thing one day where the audience will get a 20-minute episode rather than a 2-hour one. But TLDR, go read that series. It's fantastic.
It is very good. It is, unfortunately, in light of current events, it will maybe hit a little harder than it's supposed to, but it's still very good. Yes, I agree. I agree.
And I don't know. We had a lot of conversations about, man, I don't even remember what the last thing that we actually aired was.
I don't remember either. It's been a while.
Was it starting a commune?
I don't know, but let's do it.
I mean,
that actually ties in pretty well with the parting gift that I do tonight.
It's been so long since we've actually put out an episode that I think the last one that aired, we had started playing Satisfactory and we're into it. And we'd completely stopped playing Satisfactory for a while. And now we're playing it again and burnt out and about ready to stop.
Yes. I mean, it's worth talking about. I think that that we started an online. So I have to send you some money for the server, by the way.
Oh, I don't care at all.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to send it. I'll buy you a beer. How's that? Or 2.
How about
or 12?
I come up this summer sometime and you buy me a couple of beers.
Perfect.
While feeding me and whatever.
Oh, yes, there will be some feeding.
All right. So you wanted to talk about people and high standards and something.
I mean, that's kind of a serious topic. I don't really want to talk about it a lot, but I have been thinking about it a whole bunch in light of, because we've talked a few times about like, who do you watch? What do you listen to? Where do you get your stuff and how do you deal with it? Right. And my answer at the time was I pick some people that I trust and I don't listen to things directly because, the whole reason that we don't want to talk about that shit. And I started thinking about how, and I'm not even sure how to phrase this, like how we look at the world through our own framework of the experiences that we've had. And even those of us who are paying attention to it, quite often we look at the way that people are and think, why are they like that? And then the answer is pretty much always just like Obi-Wan said, right? From a certain point of view, this is the truth that you know. So I don't know. I was thinking about like how do people deal with stuff? And I heard an interesting sort of research thing that was done recently that you might find intriguing. If I were to ask you, imagine you didn't have breakfast this morning, how would you feel? Like, how would you respond to that?
How did you know?
Imagine that you didn't have breakfast this morning. How would you feel? And if you did have breakfast, imagine you did have breakfast this morning. How would you feel?
I don't know. That's such a mundane question, right? It's I'm not sure what it's trying to evoke. So I think what it would make me feel is confusion. Why are we asking this question?
Okay. And that's fine, right? Like that's a reasonable, reasoned response. But something between 30 and 40% of the population of the world, and everybody who's listening at home, if you ask them, imagine you didn't have breakfast this morning, how would you feel? 30 to 40% of people will answer, but I did have breakfast this morning. Yeah, okay, great. But imagine that you didn't. How would you feel?
Mm-hmm.
But I did have breakfast this morning, because they can't. And this is not about being smart or dumb. It's about how does your brain work, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how a lot of people's brains work is, this is what happened, right? So if someone presents those people with alternate facts, right? Or lies, or something that they want to convince them of, right? It's like, oh, okay, someone has said a thing, therefore that's a thing that happened, just because that's how their brains work. Right. And you can work around that, and you can find ways to educate yourself to change a little bit. But if that's your general nature, then, and it got me thinking, not so much about like, okay, those people and how they behave, but in just how different we all are from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me understand, in light of doing technical support for most of my life, right? Because the way that I think, honest to goodness, I have trouble thinking directly about facts. Almost everything that I think of is abstracted in some way. So I think about things as analogies, as similes, as metaphors, right? Or as just like abstract symbolism. So when I encounter somebody like that, it's really difficult for us to communicate, because they're like, XYZ. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's like ABC. And they're like, no, it's XYZ, right? And it's a little bit like, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, which is ridiculous and has been debunked. But the concept of people approaching things completely differently based on who they are and what their life experience is an important lesson that I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about people.
Now, out of curiosity, did the study sort of frame it from the angle of people's ability to take themselves out of their own shoes and empathize with other people, like try to put themselves in other people's situations?
That was at very least part of it. I didn't. So here's the thing, is that I've understood this through an abstraction, because I heard somebody talking about the study. So I don't know what the details of the study are. And I might have it completely wrong. However, my own anecdotal sort of approach to this, I've been asking people, right? Like, imagine you didn't have breakfast this morning. And I have run across it's about half of the people that I know, about half of the expected, like 30 to 40%. So like 10 to 15% of the people that I have asked have responded with, but I did have breakfast this morning. And I'm like, I didn't ask you if you had breakfast or not. I asked you to imagine something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this ties in, I can't remember, it's probably in one of the ones that we recorded, but then haven't shared with the world, that the way, and this is all over the internet in the last little bit. So if you're listening to us, you've probably seen it. But the way that people visualize things falls into one of several categories. And there are a significant number of people who, if you ask them, imagine an apple, they can't actually see the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like, and here's the funny thing, is that when I heard that, I started thinking to myself, well, if I imagine an apple, what do I imagine? And I get kind of a cell, blah, 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 blah. I've had 2 sips of beer, so I'm smashed. So I imagine kind of an animated type of apple, like a cell shaded kind of apple, right? But there's all of this sort of metadata that's floating around it. There's like the word and the spelling, there's the various different species and the colors and the fact that they have seeds and that they grow on trees, right? What does an apple taste like? What is apple juice all about? Is it got too much sugar in it? Should you drink juice? Should you eat the apple? What if you don't get the fiber, right? So I think I've described before that my brain is a little bit like a ball of yarn. Like, you pull on a string and it's coming out in different colors, and it's probably not even from the same skein.
I have, I think it was John and Hank Green that had recently done some videos specifically about that. That's one of the key differences between those two brothers, is that John is the guy that can't visualize the apple in his head, which I find interesting, because I mean, they're both authors now. They both write books, but John is the one that historically has been the creative guy who creates stories and sort of evokes images and emotions through words. And hearing him talk about his inability to visualize something like an apple, my jaw drops just thinking about what that process must be like of evoking story and images and emotions through words without that basic sort of fundamental thing that I take for granted.
That's really where I come at this from, right? Because I've been, I'm going to be 52 in Jesus, in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Gah, really soon. Anyway, so I'm no longer young. And the idea of white privilege and male privilege, right, was sort of surprising to me when I was first confronted with it, right? And there was definitely, in my brain at least, there was a whole lot of resistance to that. What do you mean? I've struggled, and I have, but it's fundamentally different, right? And I'm still coming to terms with that, but there's a kind of a thing, and this is the other thing that I wanted to bring up, is that a lot of the people that I watch are or listen to are angry about a lot of stuff, right? Justifiably so, I think. But a lot of times, I listen to the way that they're approaching it, and it's all about here are these people that we disagree with. We need to punish them. And my question is, to what end? Right? Where do we get? What happens when you disagree with people? Can we agree that they're also people? Okay, cool. So they're people, right? If we resolve whatever differences we've got, do we still have to be people together? So then what? And how does, and just the idea of accepting people from a different perspective, I guess. And not I'm struggling with it is the reason that I wanted to talk about it, is because on the one hand, it's here's some people that I disagree with fundamentally on a lot of issues or a lot of things or some pretty basic shit. What do you do with that? Right? Because fighting isn't the answer, right? Arguing isn't the answer. I don't want to debate people or dunk on them, right? I just want everybody to be friends, man. Fuck, let's watch Barney together and hug and share and learn and grow.
It's tough. That's something I've struggled with too, because I've definitely fallen victim to, well, I guess, the expectation that I have of myself. And I think the thing that you're dancing around here is needing to be the better person while still thinking of the other person as a person, because so much of what I disagree with a lot of people about are how they don't view people as equal and fundamentally,
people
and sort of the rights that they should and shouldn't have, that they, they treat people as fundamentally different and dehumanize people. So I need to recognize that, sometimes when I'm angry and my reaction might be, okay, well, these people need to be called out and punished. That needs to be done through not falling into the same trappings as the thing that you're criticizing or disagreeing with, right?
Yeah.
And, and it's hard to accept that there is a double standard sometimes in that, right? That to both stick to the things that you believe in, you have to do the things that the people you disagree with won't or refuse to.
Yeah. I was thinking, I had this thought the other day and I pitched it to Cindy. And I'm not sure, for one thing, I don't think that I have this clear in my head. I don't think she understood because I don't know how to explain it. I don't think you're going to understand either because I don't know how to explain it. Right. But I had this idea that the true definition of evil is the idea that everyone The one size fits all. Like everyone must be the same. Like you look at a lot of the people that I have a problem, and we're getting into some too serious shit here, so we need to cut this off pretty quick. But a
Yeah,
lot of
I
the
mean,
people that
literally my first note in the show notes is, let's avoid anything too heavy. Not using it as an excuse, but blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that, okay, so this is the last thing I'm going to say on anything too serious is there, like a lot of the stuff that is problematic is you're not allowed to do that. You have to be just like me. Right. And it's tribalism. It comes down to tribalism. And I think a lot of the things that we're talking about here is the paradox of tolerance, which is an interesting concept to look into. Yeah. But luckily, there's nothing serious happening in the world, so we don't have to worry about it.
Right. I just want to make it clear that like the next 5-month hiatus or whatever this ends up being is on you.
It's all my fault. I know. I did wrong and bad. I'm a bad person. You know what? You know what it is? I should be more like you.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. No, and I think we touched on this in the episodes that probably won't be aired, but I've been struggling now for the audience. Sort of dovetails into this conversation. I can't deal with, gestures broadly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing everybody will admit that we have in common is that like the world sucks. We might think it sucks for different reasons, but nobody's happy right now, right?
Very few, at least.
And one of the things that I've found is just like, the media and like even stuff that I used to enjoy is just constantly beating the same drum about it. If it isn't fear mongering, it's calling out the fear mongering. So I've just found myself having to like distance myself from it, not like for my own mental well-being. I'm not going to shout mental illness or depression or anything like that, because like there's people that deal with real mental illness and depression. And obviously, that's a subject that's pretty close to home for me. So I'm not that. And I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me. But I just want to say that I have been sort of struggling with the bombardment of all of this. And that has pushed me to the point of distancing myself to extremes that are probably equally unhealthy, like apathy, borderline nihilism kind of stuff that has been part of the reason why we haven't released an episode in the last little while. Cause it's just like, I don't want to, edit this shit where we talk about the state of the world. And I'm not blaming that entirely. Some of it has just been busy work, life, miscellaneous stuff, but that has definitely been a part of it. So I set the ground rules. We're not going to have the serious conversation. We've had some serious conversation. This one's on you.
All right. Yeah. And I'm done. I mean, I'm done talking about that. The one thing I will say is that there are good people in the world, and they are still doing good people things. So yes, that's good.
And that has been the one thing that I have tried to do is focus on that, find those people. Yeah. And not the people that go out of their way to contrast themselves to everybody else, where it's like, look at me, I'm, I have the superior stance or whatever. It's
look at me, bop, 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 bop.
Yeah. I have had that song stuck in my head.
It keeps popping up in my feed too, and every time I look at it, I go, "Yep, it's just great. It's just perfect."
Well, it's what the internet was supposed to be for. It's one of those things that reminds you this is what this internet should still be about, and we've lost sight of it. Cat videos and whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Shreds videos.
Noiseland.
I think so, yeah.
It does a lot of sort of, I don't know what you call them, musical remixes.
It's dubstep.
Sort of, yeah. Of a lot of, not just exclusively Red Letter Media content, but a lot of it. And some of the stuff from back in the day is decent, but this last one is just an absolute fucking banger.
It probably won't make any sense unless you're a Red Letter Media fan, but if you are, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
You know, you got Rem Lazar and Suburban Sasquatch in the same video. Like,
I mean, yeah. It's basically a remix of the last, I don't know what, 2 or 3 years of just absolutely clippable stuff.
yeah. I mean, you can turn YouTube off at this point. Like, we're done, right? We've peaked.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Very much we've peaked. The only thing on YouTube that remains that's worth watching is that one Indian guy who's teaching people how to do math, because he's brilliant. I think he's probably about 500 different people, but he's awesome.
Speaking about peaking, in episode 1, we had a conversation about Firefly, which seems particularly relevant now. If for those of you that have been paying attention, the last couple of weeks, there's been some teasing through mostly the podcast sort of social accounts. Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk have a podcast. Once We Were Spacemen, I think it's called.
That's what it's called.
I've got it. I've subscribed to it, and I've listened to, I think, 1.5 episodes of it. Anyway,
I haven't listened to any of it.
They did this intentionally awkward sort of tease of social media videos where Nathan Fillion was going over to different cast members' homes from Firefly, and they would have this sort of awkward conversation about, it's happening, is it time, you know, stuff like that. And then they do this weird head nod thing. And I kind of thought, well, this could go one of two ways. Either they're trying to push for something Firefly, like a comeback, new show. I thought maybe like a radio drama or something like that. Or they're releasing a line of bobbleheads.
I honestly thought that it was just an epic troll. And I'm like, listen, if this is literally nothing, this is the very best troll that has ever happened, ever.
So it turns out, now I haven't watched the final panel, but I've sort of paid attention to what the announcement is, that they are looking to do an animated series where all of the surviving members of the cast are going to voice their characters. So it's not what we were pitching for in episode 1 of this podcast, but it's something.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So before I think I get into it, because I do want to sort of pick this apart and talk about sort of expectations and predictions a little bit and some of the discourse that's happened around it. What's your first reaction?
My first reaction was like, okay, this is definitely going to be, they're trying to make it, and it's going to be one of those, okay, almost. Nope, we didn't get it. But I did actually watch the panel they did at whatever con they were at. And they started it off with an announcement that they have Joss Whedon's approval. They have Disney's approval / Fox or whoever else owns the damn thing. They have showrunners. They have the whole cast on board. They're literally now just looking for finalizing funding. So, I mean, they have concept art, which looks pretty darn cool. They're planning to do, I guess, the stories between the end of the TV show and the beginning of the movie, so that they can, bring Wash back. Because, let's face it, we're not doing Firefly without Wash. Come on. I do worry a little bit about it having a similar problem to, was it Rogue One? What was the one that they did where it's like, oh, hey, yeah, this is the one where at the end of it, everybody dies.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. So there's a little bit of that in the back of my mind. But at the same time, I'm like watching them talk to each other on stage, right? And the jokes that they're throwing back and forth at one another and the chemistry that that cast still has. I'm like, I literally don't care if they just sit in a studio and talk to each other. I'm down for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my initial reaction was excitement. I'm about due for a rewatch. I do sort of I'll call it a semi-annual rewatch. It's probably only been about 4 months since I did a rewatch of Firefly. Such as the tragedy of, only having really a partial first season. now that I've sort of absorbed it and I've let that excitement percolate, I'm now kind of picking it apart and focusing on, I guess, preparing myself for the disappointment, which is kind of natural. And, a lot of people's reaction to this has been, don't do this, right? Because it will be a disappointment for the fans who thought it was, like people that are just like, this was lightning in a bottle that didn't take off at the time. And, it developed this cult following afterwards. And part of what made it so great, and I'm not saying this is my belief, this is just what I hear a lot of people saying, is that it didn't have that chance to play itself out and get merely mediocre like a lot of shows do, right? That's part of the magic of that success. And I think what people, don't want to do is have that, what they feel about the original sort of partial season tarnished by something that doesn't meet their sort of nostalgia fueled, sort of rose colored love affair goggles of what Firefly is to a lot of people, right?
Oh yeah, there is no way that it can live up to the hype, but that is only because the hype is like past the stratosphere. So I will offer you two sort of analogies that it could go. We could get, oh God, what is the first? Force Awakens? No, not the Force. What's the very first prequel? I've forgotten what it's called. Phantom Menace. We could get a Phantom Menace where if you never watched the originals, you'll watch it and go, this is the greatest movie ever. Or we could get the Dungeons and Dragons, the Jeremy Irons, Jeremy Irons version, followed by a Tale of Thieves or whatever the heck the last one was, or the new one, which was good, right? Like it was Dungeons and Dragons. It's funny. I was watching some Ginny D videos today, and she was doing her review of, what is it called? The new one? Rogue something, Tale of Bards. Oh, I forget the tagline is. Yeah, the Dungeons and Dragons.
Something thieves. Shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what my brain is doing too. Anyway, but she's like, so I watched the old one from 2000 and something, and she's like, I could forgive an awful lot of stuff except that. And it's like the director said that he did not want to focus on special effects. He wanted to tell a good story. And then she pointed out all the stuff where it's like, you've got this mage who's like ultra powerful, and she literally just exists to be a damsel in distress. And I'm like, holy shit, you're right. Like, I didn't notice it. Again, that's that male privilege thing. And I'm like, this could have been an awesome character because lots of talent, right? I mean, Jeremy Irons was chewing the scenery. I'm sure there was none left by the time he was done. Did you know that Gary Gygax had a cameo in that movie?
I want to say that I know it because I'd heard it or read it somewhere, but I actually haven't watched it. I've watched clips of it, but I haven't watched it.
Oh my God. I saw it in the theater. It was so bad. I was seriously thinking about walking out of the theater. That's how bad it was. Right. And I wanted to love it, but it wasn't like, the thing is that it wasn't a Dungeons and Dragons movie. It was like, it was a Wayans vehicle that they didn't allow him to be wacky enough to make it good. Yeah. It's just not good.
So, important question before we get back to Firefly. When you said it would be like if you hadn't watched the original movies and only saw the prequel and thought that it was the greatest movie ever, did you intentionally do it in the George Lucas voice? Because that's what came out.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Which
but that's
probably
cool.
says a lot about why Star Wars went the way it did.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. It is funny though, because I have some friends and coworkers who are of the millennial and younger persuasion, which is, speaking of perceptions and perception windows, perspectives, significantly different on those movies. I had somebody unironically tell me that, and I've forgotten the name of it, the second one anyway.
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones was literally the best movie they had ever seen, and they were not being funny. And I'm like, man, it had potential, right? Like there's a story there. There's no doubt about that. If they had let someone besides George Lucas direct it, it could have been good. Right?
Yeah.
Like everyone who's on screen has talent. The story is compelling. It just didn't work. You may not have noticed, but your brain did.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I've been sort of looking back at a lot of media and a lot of things that I've enjoyed and not enjoyed in the past. And I'm much more open to the idea of saying, I can appreciate this thing on its own merits, but this is not for me. It wasn't made for me.
No, it wasn't. It was made for kids, right? So, and yeah, I've gone back and watched the prequels again, and it's like I still don't like them, but the hate that they got was undeserved, right?
Well, yeah, and again, it's like the Firefly thing times a million, in that what came before was held in such high regard that even hitting a home run could be seen as disappointment in comparison, right? Like,
yeah, you've got to knock the cover off the ball in order for it to be even accepted. And that's one of the things, like for me, looking at anything new to do with Firefly, because one of the things that the cast was talking about during their panel that I thought was really interesting was that, like, there were people who weren't alive then who have been introduced to it and gone, this is really great. Why isn't there more of it?
yeah.
So I'm hoping that those people and people who really weren't around or really super interested in the original, like it's something for them, right? And as
Yeah.
long as it's not terrible, I'll be okay with it.
But I think, yeah, and I think it needs to be done through, the lens of like Firefly's popularity to begin with, right? Because nobody watched it when it was aired live. Hell, the network Fox couldn't even be bothered to broadcast it in order. Like that's how much nobody that was sort of involved in bringing that show to people's eyes gave a shit. And it wasn't that the people that did watch it didn't like it. It was just set up to fail. It was put on at a time that nobody watched. It could have been a completely different story had, the right people given a shit. And part of the reason why the movie was made was that there was such a sort of post-cancellation reaction from the fan base, right? Like one of the original sort of big letter writing campaigns and stuff like that involved in sort of trying to give this show another chance. So I think it would be a mistake, following up on sort of that last thing that you said, to do what like Star Trek has tried to do in sort of the last decade or so, which is make a Star Trek for somebody else that isn't a Star Trek fan. Like, I don't think that works here. I think you need to make something that honors Firefly, and you can try and make it accessible to the audience, but don't lose sight of the fact that the only reason you're considering doing this is because you've had such a passionate fan base that has been asking for more for 20 years.
It has to be Firefly. I'm perfectly okay if they want to take a bit of a risk with trying something interesting, right? But it has to be done sort of like if there's going to be like showrunners and directors and whatever, right? And if they're like, we have this idea we'd like to try, right? I have no objection to them going, okay, we tried it and it didn't work. Great. That's fine. It's funny. You mentioned the movie about it being the letter writing campaign. I was thinking to myself, it's literally an unironic, it's Morbin time. Right? Because it's the same thing, except it was not ironic. Just because people are clamoring for it or making memes about it doesn't mean that they actually want to see it. But I think in this case, like people actually do want to see Firefly. When you think about it, like there was what, like 6 or 8 episodes? There weren't many in the movie. And there's
14.
still, was it 14?
I think so. 14, 16, 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was about a half a season. Like they're literally still doing like conventions, and they're filling the hall at the convention.
Yeah.
So people are interested.
Yeah, and that's just the risk is like, obviously they, times have changed a little bit. There needs to be some evolutions, I think, but don't alienate that passionate fan base in doing that. Which I guess sort of brings me to the other thing that I want to talk about around this, and that has been how puzzling I've found some of the online discourse. Like, there's the natural stuff that I mentioned before, where it's like, this is great and all, but like it could never live up to my expectations, so I'd almost rather you didn't do it. But what I'm seeing so much of now that I've never ever seen, like, I know there's people that don't like Firefly. There's people that don't enjoy the show. Sure, there's people that don't enjoy anything. But they've never been outwardly sort of vocal in, conventions or, subreddits or the kind of things where you would sort of read about Firefly and a bunch of the fans would jump in. You wouldn't see a lot of people coming in and shitting all over it. Now, I know there's been controversies around Firefly, certainly the Joss Whedon stuff. They've been careful to make clear that he's not involved in this at all, aside from sort of giving his blessing or permission to go ahead and do it. Obviously, there's some controversy around Adam Baldwin and some of the Gamergate stuff. Like, he is what he is, and they don't seem to, they're not distanced from him at all. And I mean, it's been a while, maybe people deserve second chances kind of thing. But what I've found is there's just a lot of people out there now that seem to want to like retroactively say that Firefly was never good.
Oh,
I'm hearing a lot of that. Like, they don't need to make this, the show wasn't that good at all. And some of it is people that have never watched it, obviously, that are just trolling and whatnot. But even people that probably really, really enjoyed it, and maybe the well has been poisoned a little bit by some of the Whedon stuff, and times changing, and there's some baggage there in how characterizations and story and stuff like that were, that I guess we're a little bit more aware of now. And some of the things where obviously it would need to evolve a little bit, but yeah, it's weird. It's bizarre how much I've seen people pushing back against this, especially in an era where everything's a rehash or a remake of something, right?
I mean, here's the funny thing: is that falls into the nobody wants to work anymore. It wasn't like this when I was a kid. It was always like this. It was always like there's always been people who didn't or pushed back against it. The thing that I like, my reaction to that is more along the lines of there's always somebody who wants to have a hot take.
Yeah.
Right. And the hot take to take against this is to say Firefly isn't any good, because everyone has been conditioned to the idea of, like, I have to get eyeballs on my product, right? Which is what sets our podcast apart from other podcasts where we really don't give a shit if anyone's listening. I mean, it'd be nice if you'd listen and, contribute to our Patreon and fill up the tip jar and send us a beer. But,
while you're at it, make us a Patreon.
Yeah.
Give us a tip jar, and
yeah, design us a t-shirt and set up a storefront for us. We need some merch. We got to push the merch.
Got to push the Whopper button.
We got bagels. Woo! What the heck was it? Don something. What the heck was his name?
Beverage. Don Beverage.
Beverage. Yeah. Did you know that whole presentation is actually available on YouTube?
Yeah, I believe
it is unhinged. Like, oh man. Okay. So, personal story. In my youth, I got pushed into trying to be an insurance salesman, which is the most unsuitable job for me to do. I have to go and talk to strangers to try and get them to give me money for a product that makes me more money than it makes them. Insurance commissions are actually really ridiculously high. In any case, so I had to go to a lot of those things because it's like a cult, right? You go to the thing and you listen to the motivational speaker who tells you all these things about, personal blah, 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 and this and that and the other thing. There was a lot of Robinson, Tony Robinson. It's not Tim Robinson, Tony Robbins, and the chicken soup for the soul guy.
Yeah.
And they're telling you stuff and talking to you, and it's all literally like, I'm going to stare into your eyes and I'm going to not blink to make sure that it's basically like mentalist tricks, right? So I've been to a bunch of those, and that was probably the most unhinged one I've ever seen.
Yeah. After you kicked over that Noiseland link and we listened to that song that night, Tanya and I watched rewatched the Don Beveridge episode of Red Letter Media's. That was a Black Spine edition, Best of the Worst, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just search Don Beveridge, Red Letter Media. Those of you that haven't ever seen it, watch it. It's kind of a classic. It's so...
You don't call Clark Kent, you call Superman. We got bagels. Woo! Push the Whopper button.
Yeah.
It's very much like, because there's a formula for doing those kinds of presentations, right? And he's got the formula nailed. Yeah. None of the words that he puts into the formula make any sense whatsoever. Yeah. It's like an alien. There's so many times on Red Letter Media where it's like an alien came down and looked at a thing and said, okay, well, we do it like this. And they just didn't understand any of the context whatsoever. Yeah. So you nailed the formula, you nailed the rhythm, you got the thing. It doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I was, actually, I think it might've been for you guys. I don't remember who I was doing it for. I was prepping a Mass Effect D&D sort of like campaign kind of thing. And one of the things that I had set up in it was an alien race called the Neilbreen. And my description of it was going to, like, literally the one-liner description was, looks very much like somebody trying hard to be human and not quite pulling it off.
And their military has uniforms of black tank tops.
Yep. So wrapping up the Firefly discussion then, what are your hopes for it? I get why they're doing sort of that gap in time between the end of the show and Serenity, because as you say, you got to have Wash.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to be limiting?
No. Honestly, you know what I hope they do with it? I hope that they do like comic book continuity, where every episode draws from and has references to everything around it, but who gives a shit whether it comes before or after? I hope they don't try and do a linear story. I hope they, like, every episode has a standalone thing that has a particular theme, that maybe they have callbacks to older episodes, or maybe they have callbacks to stuff we haven't seen yet. One of the things that I found about the original Firefly that really, really worked was there was lots of stuff that they referenced that you almost understood. Right? It's like, this makes sense. I know that they're referring to something that is in their experience that I haven't seen, and maybe they'll get around to explaining it later, and maybe they won't. But it makes the world that they're in feel more like a world and less like a story. It's something that I try and stick into D&D, but because the format is so small and like there's so much of a gap between things, it doesn't always come off. And I'm not talented enough to make that happen. So, you got to recognize your own limits. So they recognize their limits and do the thing.
Yeah.
Two minds
only
about two?
It. Yeah. I mean, I do think that, going Monster of the Week style, where every sort of episode is at least a semi-contained kind of story is the way to go, given that they're sort of placing it in the middle of the continuity. I worry that it limits their ability to explore, I guess, the universe, that they created. Like, that's one of the things that I wanted out of Firefly. There was sort of interesting ties to what would have been their history, but, potentially Earth's future kind of thing, right? Like the weird sort of Sino-American kind of mix of culture and stuff and what happened there. And I would like to have had an opportunity to learn more about that, you know, given the story, like, you know, there's sort of a semi-continuous arc that gets told through through River, I guess, and sort of her backstory that sort of gets wrapped up in the movie. If you haven't seen Serenity, spoilers, but go watch it. So aside from the sort of Monster of the Week style sort of thing, I'm not sure how much they could explore sort of within the confines of the bookends, right? And that's fine. Like, if it's, you know, they're going to do an animated show, maybe it'll be, nobody does like a 24 episode season of animated stuff. Like, it's probably going to feel a lot like a Vox Machina or something like that, where it's, here's 10 solid episodes of varying lengths or whatever. I guess they're probably looking for a network to pick it up instead of maybe a streaming service. I don't know. They're looking for a home wherever. You know, they're not immediately jumping to crowdfunding it, I guess. I know they've had limited success with that kind of stuff in the past. You watched Con Man, right?
I watched part of it. I think that because you sent me Con Man, I remember that. And I remember looking at it, and it was just after because I didn't watch Firefly when it came out, right? Because no one did. I think it was just after I had finished it, or it was just after the movie had come out. I can't remember.
Yeah, it would have been after the movie came out, I think, because it wasn't that long ago. Like, it was probably only 10 or 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe, that Con Man came out.
Something like that, yeah.
So,
and I was at the point where it's like, I can't do this because the pain of not having more Firefly is too close. So I think I watched the first episode where it was somebody was asking for his autograph under the stall. And I'm like, okay, I can see that this is going to be like humorous, but it's that sort of, the humor is derived from the discomfort of everyone involved. And I'm like, I just can't handle this right now. So
yeah, it is well worth watching. The second season that they did isn't as good as the first one, but the first one it has some pretty meta moments in it, right? Because, of course, Alan Tudyk's character in it is sort of playing a person that was on a show that got canceled, like Firefly, but it wasn't Firefly. And then towards the end of the season, he's actually meeting cast members from Firefly in it, talking about Firefly as a show. I don't know. It's good. It's worth a watch. It's hilarious. Probably in smaller doses, you know. It probably didn't have 4 or 5 seasons worth of legs or anything, but while we're waiting for whatever this is, I do suggest that anybody listening look up Con Man. It's a little bit hard to find. It was something that was released on, I think, Vimeo back in the day when it was available. It was kind of sold episodically. I think it might have found its way onto some streaming platform at one point. If you look hard enough, you'll always find it. Shoot me an email. Hit our website. I'm sure I can hook you up. Completely legally and all of that.
You could probably email Alan Tudyk and say, hey, man, I heard about this Con Man thing that you're in. Can you tell me where to find it? And he'll probably send it to you. This is one of those things where I keep reading stories about like college professors and stuff. And they're like, so, you know, like the blah, blah, blah. And if you buy it in the bookstore, it's $475. So whatever you do, don't go to this specific website and download it from there, because that would be illegal. And one of the things that always comes out of that is that, like, there's a whole conspiracy theory behind this. But basically, scientists have to publish their stuff, and most of the time they have to pay to publish it. But really what they want is they want you to read it. So if you find an abstract somewhere and you want to read it, if you contact the person who wrote it, they will probably just send it to you. Because they're allowed to do that. But they also have to put it somewhere where you have to pay for it.
For sure.
They don't get any of that money. So,
well, do we want to talk video games?
I mean, we've played some.
Some.
I used to be an adventurer like you.
Stay a while and listen.
I need more aluminum.
Not anymore.
I haven't logged in a couple of days.
So we were over Satisfactory, I think, for quite a while. Probably not as of the last time, we released a show, but you were playing another survival game. I'd gone through, played Cyberpunk again, finished off the expansion, most of the way through a full playthrough of The Witcher 3 plus the 2 expansions there. And we were talking after a D&D session, I think, about, we talked about playing Satisfactory online. We should maybe think about that sometime, which turned into a day later me setting up a server and kicking you a link.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what sort of expectations we had over it. It's gone about exactly how I expected it would go.
Okay, well, that's good.
Which is that we're very, very much playing it as single-player games in the same sandbox and just being very, very supportive of each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really collaborating much. We're not
much.
We're not building the same sandcastle. We're just, you're building a castle over there and I'm building a castle over there. And every once in a while, one of us will be like, hey, can I borrow your bucket?
It is true. Although I did actually tap into your heatsink factory. I tried to do so in a respectful fashion and maintain the aesthetic of the place. But I did have to punch a hole in the floor and another one in the wall. So
yeah, no, it's okay. It's being replaced by Bauxite to Electric Boogaloo.
I have been amused by some of the names that we've given things. I have tamed an awful lot of doggos that I have never seen again. So I'm not sure if they're all getting eaten by
no, I think what's
spitters.
happening based on what I've seen is that they're falling through the terrain somehow and being stuck underneath it. I just as I was sort of gathering Mercer spheres and whatnot, I took one of our save files and uploaded it to Satisfactory Calculator, and it's showing my lizard doggo that's been missing, the original rock lobster, on the map, and he's not there. And then I got looking at the data, and it's like, oh, his elevation looks a little bit wonky. Mm-hmm. Must have fallen through, because it was like, oh, it's shown that he's under this factory machine, right? Like he's under this assembler right here. Well, let me tear that thing up, and the foundation that's under it, nope, not there. So I think he's gone. I feel bad.
Funny story. There is actually a way to get under the world, and it involves building a train that goes through the terrain.
Yeah,
it's a terrain train.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that's still. I know that Josh was doing that in his Let's Game It Out videos and pre-release and stuff. But in general, I mean, we haven't really, like I say, divvied up the same sandcastle and sort of collaborated creatively. But I think it has been an interesting experience, if for no other reason than to really showcase our different approach to some things in a way that isn't combative, right? It's not like talking about world building.
Oh,
where it's like, this is not working. This is oil and water, and this is a recipe for ending our friendship. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
It wasn't oil and water. It was more like potassium and water. That's what this thing we were talking about at the beginning. It's just a different perspective. It's a different approach, different way of going to the thing. But yeah, I've really been enjoying, because a lot of the stuff that you're doing is the stuff where I'm like, oh man, that is so tedious and I don't want to do it again. Right. And I mean, I went nuclear. That was pretty cool. It was seriously unbalanced because of the number of times that I adjusted inputs and outputs at one point. Also, it's the disposal of nuclear waste in Satisfactory is pretty reflective, honestly.
I don't know, there's a few things that I found interesting about the experience and kind of funny. One of the things that you said as we were starting it up and we were talking about how we wanted to do it, you said, I don't know, I mean, if you want to just enable everything, I just want to make pretty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now you've finally got it to the point where you've been sort of trying to doll things up from an aesthetic perspective, but still that, at least as an outsider looking in, doesn't look to have been a focus for the majority of your gameplay, which is totally fine. I just
Nope,
found
it
it
wasn't.
amusing because it seemed like that was the reason you were still playing Satisfactory. It wasn't to progress, or like you were over the RPG aspects of the game. You enjoyed sort of the building of stuff, but like you're playing in the sandcastle or the sandbox at your own pace, and wanting to build pretty sandcastles. And I'm not sure that really is how things have gone so far.
Not so far. I started off kind of that's still the end goal, but before I get there, like for me, it's like if you in order to build stuff. And the other thing is that every time that I lay down another floor of a factory, now that we have the 6x6 blueprints, like the sort of factory floor that I designed, literally empties the depot of concrete.
Yeah.
Like I can build one of them, and then I got to wait for it to replenish. But I wanted to have like because one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to go nuclear, and there was like one thing that I needed to make, and I'm like, well, as long as I'm doing this right, like I'm gonna sort of reconfigure things so that it all makes sense. And I wanted to try the new recipes, and I made everything pure and blah 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 with the water and yada yada. So steamed copper sheets, and then it's like, well, I've got all this leftover stuff. I may as well like make the other parts. And as long as I'm doing that, I'll do it in like one big factory that's stacked on top of each other. And I did try and make them sort of, attractive-ish. But I did also mention at the beginning that most everything that I build has a sort of Soviet brutalist architectural vibe, right?
Yeah.
I like big, chunky concrete structures.
Sure.
But I do actually want to build things more pretty as I go along. Like I've torn down that factory on the top of the cliff. I've torn down like 4 times now. So
we kick things off. I think there might have been like a little unspoken, unintentional competition happening early, like our first week. Because I think like what happened is we started the server up, and I'm like, day one, I was free that weekend. I wasn't doing much. I think you might have had something going on. And I was basically like, okay, well, we don't really care about the progression aspect of it. So I'm going to push us forward to the point where we're in like phase 2 or one of the mid tiers, something like that, so that we can actually start building things, have the tools to build pretty things, whatever, right? Like the TDM of gathering resources and manually and running it back and forth to the hub and whatnot. Like I wanted to plow through that. So I think in the first couple of days, I probably put 6 hours into getting us through the progression. And you kind of came back and made a comment. It's like, holy shit, somebody's been busy, which is fine. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to get us to this point, so that you could, do your thing or whatever. And then I logged out. And then I don't know if that was at a challenge or whether you just got into it of your own accords. But like when I logged back in, I don't know, maybe a day and a half later, it's like the entire world has been reshaped. There's platforms on every cliff, raised up into the sky, floating concrete everywhere, arbitrarily placed power towers, like with no sort of thought put towards like, let me place them in a way where like even all 4 legs are touching the ground. It's like, nope, I'm going to jump up. I'm going to hang one off the side of this cliff. And it's just like, oh my God. And why that's funny for me is like, if I'm thinking about trying to make things aesthetically pretty, that would be the point where I looked around and like in one of my playthroughs, when I saw that, rather than like, okay, I'm going to tear a lot of that down and make it pretty, I would just start over.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, somebody shit all over the place. That's not a criticism. That is, to be clear, not a criticism. It was just hilarious at the time.
Well, the other thing is that like you probably came in at that point somewhere about halfway through me going, oops, I screwed up my blueprints, so I have to tear them down. Right. And as a consequence of me having not quite made the blueprints correctly, right? So I would have built, like copper and iron processing in order to handle 1,200 ore coming out before I had 1,200 ore belts. Like,
Yeah.
I think we were on like Mark III at that point. But I have set up everything for this. But because everything wasn't quite right, I had to, in between all of those blueprints, actually manually place a bunch of belts and a bunch of things and replace a bunch of stuff. So when I went, oh, okay, well, you've upgraded to like Mark IV belts, which means I can fix this and this and this and that. And I got to fix those blueprints. So I'm going to delete those blueprints that I've placed. Oh, and there's all of this other crap that wasn't part of the blueprint that I had to put in there. And I got like, so, tear this apart and tear that apart and tear that apart, fall out of the sky because there's no power anymore. So now I got to figure out, okay, where did I connect power? Fuck it. I'll just put up a new power tower so that it's close by. There was also at one point all the way across the cliffs and all over the place, a whole bunch of Mark II wall sockets, right? Instead of power poles that were just like literally connected in this giant web in the sky, just so that I could float around to delete stuff. Right. And because I was also struggling with the idea of what the hell am I doing here? Like I'd get about halfway through it and go, I got to log out for a bit and go and do something, play solitaire or something, because this is just too much. God. And then I'd come back in and look at it and go, okay, I got to delete all this. And then I build it up again and realize, oh, hey, you just unlocked the 6x6. Does that really make a big difference? Because 5x5 is a nice round number. You can stack things together. Everything goes in nice divisible things. Then I realized, oh, hey, if I have 6x6s, then I can put train stations on top of them and it works great. So I'll redo everything as a 6x6, which means that I tear it all apart again and realize that, oh yeah, I did a whole lot of manual adjustments to those ones too. So yeah, there was a couple of times that I deleted, 75% of what was there and the rest was left hanging in the sky. Also, I had made a specific sort of goal to go vertical as much as possible, right?
Okay,
Instead
that's where
of
I was
spreading
going.
out. Yeah. So it was like, this is Sim Tower is what I'm playing at this point. So yeah, a lot of it went way up into the sky.
And I found that sort of interesting as sort of an outside observer, because it wasn't just going vertical, right? Like you weren't just building towers that started on the ground. Like you basically started with, I'm going to build Machu Picchu. And then I'm going to build on top of it. So, you were starting shit on top of like, not even, mountains, but like these really sharp, pointy finger-like structures, right? That like, there's no room to do anything up here.
No, that's why you got to build foundations.
Yep.
Part of it is because like for context for people who are listening, I design actual like things for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started off in machine design and now I do like civil and mechanical things with actual like real world pipes and girders and that kind of thing. And a lot of my day to day is frustration with this doesn't fit here. This doesn't fit here. This doesn't fit here. So this game has taken that restriction away and said, basically, once you've built a foundation, gravity doesn't matter anymore. So I have taken that and said, all right then, gravity doesn't matter. I can literally build a foundation way up in the sky. Everything is levitating. I'm going to go be a spaceman.
But you started doing it like ultimate hard mode because like we hadn't unlocked jetpack. We hadn't unlocked hoverpack at that point. I don't know if you were just stacking foundations up until you thought you were high enough, jumping. I don't know what you were doing, but this was like early in our like first 3 or 4 days of gameplay. I'm looking up and it's just like, how the fuck did he get up there?
4-meter ramps, bro. lots of later on deleted ramps. The parachute is really good for that too, because if you jump, open the parachute and hit the right cliff, you literally levitate all the way up.
Yeah. Well, that was basically my first 2 weeks of playing, was you saying something in Discord like, I'd really like this. And then I said, okay, well, I'll work to unlock that. And then you'd say, this would be good. Okay, fine, I'll work to unlock that. And then we just ran out of things to unlock. And it's like, I guess I can build my own shit now. And
Ah,
again, not a complaint. It was just that was our way of making it a multiplayer game. I
yeah.
wasn't going to play in your sandcastle, but I was going to like truck in the sand for you, right? Like,
It was, yeah, it was kind of because we almost played the game as though we were like, like two not quite competing companies building some kind of civil infrastructure where it's like, hey, if you got any of this, yeah, I'll send a truck over. Yeah. Or if we were like suppliers and customers. And to be clear, like when I said like this would be nice, like if you're making it, great. And if you're not, like my expectation for most of that was you saying, well, go ahead and make it then.
yeah. And I mean, in my case, it was very much, well, I didn't really have any plans for what I was going to do next. So I might as well do this,
Well, and it
which
worked
was
out
fun. No,
mostly. Yeah.
like at no point was I not enjoying it, right? Like it was just interesting experiment. I don't know if it went the way you thought it would go, but it kind of went the way I thought it would.
It was a little different from what I was expecting, just because, and this is sort of the funny thing, like Satisfactory is about the one thing in my life that I actually approach in an organized fashion. Most of my life, I approach like it's a pile of 52 pickup, right? Where it's like pick up a card, look at it, where does this one go? Satisfactory, I actually make like charts and graphs and reasonably follow them. So I was kind of amused when I presented you with like, here's how I'd like to organize it. And you went, yeah, okay. And you looked at it for like the first day and then went, meh. Right.
Hey,
And
I ticked off a lot of stuff on that spreadsheet. Thank you very much.
okay, well, no, and you did. Here's the thing though, is that like when I look at how you build things, it's like, oh, okay. He knows exactly where everything is. I look at your stuff and go, I don't understand any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I tried to put down a couple of your blueprints one time and I'm like, what the, where's it? Why is that? What? Ah, fuck. I'm going to have to use my own because I couldn't get it. And there's like signs on them and stuff. Right. It's just a question of we approach things so differently. I'm just like, I don't like, I understand. Like this appears to be some sort of hieroglyphs. I don't know.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of instances where I've gone over and looked at you building stuff. And again, I mean, this is probably the worst game for us to do this kind of thing, right? Because it's
Oh,
one
yeah.
thing to collaborate. Collaborating's easy. If you're, solving simple challenges, oh, we need to get meat for something, we're playing a survival game. But this is a game about solving problems with two smart dudes who solve problems differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say that I would look at the stuff that you were doing and getting judgy about it. That wouldn't be the right term, but there was a lot of instances of me looking at it and saying to myself, well, how the fuck is he doing it that way?
This is one of those things where I think probably right, like if because we're approaching this as a recreational project,
Yeah.
right? There's all of that, just fuck it, whatever. If we were approaching it as an actual like work thing, or like something where like, okay, we need to actually get this right, I would approach it a great deal differently. Like
Sure.
before the first thing even got built, it would be like, okay, how are we going to do this? How is it going to be sort of together? What are you responsible for and what am I responsible for? Right. And because we didn't do that, I think it's more fun this way because it
Sure.
is chaos. Right. I mean, my first thing almost was to build a train track all the way around the island.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you're using it all, but
Not yet.
It's basically just like a track that's around there. And I put train stations at various places just to put them there. And I have discovered, by the way, that most of my segments, like most of my block signals, like every second one needs to be deleted because those sections are too short.
No, I didn't. I haven't used it all yet. I did build a couple of factories intentionally near some of the stations with the intention that, like, as I scale those factories up, we'll probably tie into that network and ship some stuff around. But right now, I haven't touched it yet. I did end up building my own inner loop, sort of in through the red forest and sort of that central area of the map.
I saw that.
Which I'm literally just harvesting resources with that. I'm not like shipping manufactured goods out anywhere. I would probably connect that loop to your network at some point, so trains can kind of traverse back and forth between them. But yeah, I haven't really sort of figured out what to do next that would involve the trains. Like I've been focusing on these sort of like not micro factories, but like very sort of specific purpose factories where I now have enough of the raw materials that I can shuffle stuff around with drones to sort of get enough scale to kind of support your efforts in nuclear, for instance, right?
Mhm.
But I haven't tried to build infrastructure. Like if I wanted to be that kind of person that was like, okay, I know I need these for space elevator to finish the game, and rather than making 100 of them over the span of 3 days, I want to make sure that I'm making 50 per minute and build all the infrastructure around sort of doing that. I haven't approached this playthrough that way at all yet. I do kind of want to scale things up, like just wrapping up that aluminum factory now is sort of part of that. Um, because that'll go into the fused frames, which goes into the other, I forget what it's called, that you need to do the nuclear pasta and plutonium rods and all of that kind of shit. So
Oh yeah, there's that cubic thing.
yeah.
I did when I finished the game, like when I did the last tier or last phase or whatever it was, I was literally doing a whole bunch of manual transfers from here to there because I was just like, I could do infrastructure for this, but I'm just like, I'll pick up 100 of them, or I'll have this factory over here that's sticking them in the depot, and I'll pull out 50 at a time and stick them into this bin and let it go. And one of the reasons that I wanted to work on power this time was because in my playthrough that I actually got all the way through, I was struggling for power at the end, especially with the accelerators. So I mean, we're at I forget what we're at now, but I think we have like 100 megawatts or 1,000 megawatts or 100,000 megawatts of actual overhead now. I don't know if the nuclear is still running. Like I haven't looked at it in a few days.
Yeah, I've been chipping away at it. We're now at the point where our theoretical max consumption crosses the line of our total power capacity, but we're not running it anywhere near that because most of our shit is not running full time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm running. I think I'm running the nuclear plant. There's 6 reactors running on uranium, and I think that I can spin that up to 18 uranium reactors.
Yeah, and full context, like full disclosure, I don't even know where the nuclear plant is. I haven't seen where you're building it. I assume it's sort of
It's one of those things on a finger in the sky.
Yeah. Like I knew you had that one uranium node right near your sort of cliffside base that you were, I assume, looking to train uranium out of based on that sort of column and train station down below. But it looks like maybe you're doing the other thing now.
Yeah, I was. Well, originally I was going to train things in there, and then I built that Rivertown factory down below. And by the time I finished building it, I was almost at the nuclear reactor. So I'm like, I'll just put conveyor belts from here to there.
So what are you doing right now? Are you just stashing waste, or are you converting it to plutonium and?
It has to go to plutonium fuel bundles, I think, before. Yeah. No, it's not the rods. It's the thing that you can actually put back into a reactor.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a fuel bundle or whatever. If you put it into a reactor, though, you get plutonium waste, which you then have to turn into fixonium before you can sink it. So yeah. So that's a heck of a loop. And one of the things, this is funny, is that when I got to doing that, I discovered that, oh yeah, you can't do this as a what's the thing where you do everything in a line as a manifold? You have to actually do it with splitters, because otherwise you end up with a bunch of stuff backed up, and then you have radiation sickness all over the place. So yeah, I reconfigured that thing on the fly like 5 or 6 times and turned the uranium off 5 or 6 times and forgot to turn it back on, and came back the next day and went, why is nothing running? Oh, right. Yeah, because the uranium's not coming out of the factory. So anyway, I have been having a blast, but the last few days I've been sort of thinking to myself, because I have there's some seasonal affected disorder going on in my
Yeah.
life, right? We had spring and then we got a foot of snow, and I was not happy about that. So I have spent some time not really doing very much, and Satisfactory is sort of the first thing that came off the list. But I have been enjoying it, and very similar to the experience you've described. When I first sort of jumped in and saw how much you had done that first weekend, there was a little bit of, oh, I better get on my horse and do some stuff, I guess. Very happy with the 2 power plants that I did, because they're still running as far as I know. And they're more of a power plant than I've ever built before. I have water coming out of the ocean and going all the way up to the top of that cliff with only 1 stack of pumps. So I figured that out. That was fun. So all of the head pressure is done by 1 pipe. And I think I have 17 pipes going all the way up to the top. Not using all of them, like a lot of what I've done, and this is kind of a funny thing, like that sort of big train loop that goes all the way around. A lot of it is, we're going to need this someday, so I'll build it now. Yeah. And that's a lot of how I think. And you know what? Sometimes it's super useful, because when you end up needing it, it's like, oh, good, I did that. But if you predict wrong, you did a whole bunch of work and you never use it, and it's like, well, this was a wasted effort.
Or worse, now I got to go do all the extra work of tearing this down so that I can do it right.
Yeah.
Because this is in the way.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the sort of train stations on that circum route might get torn down, and just leave the train loop up.
Yeah.
And just pull trains off with a ramp and pick stuff up and then put them back on the track.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point where we threw a lot of hours at it the past month. I'm probably going to scale back to sort of a more casual kind of crunch. It's still worth keeping the server up and going, but I don't see myself putting in,
hours.
Yeah, like a second job kind of thing anymore. I've sort of hit that wall again.
Yeah.
I had some conversation lined up for maybe what comes next, but I think we'll save that for next episode.
Okay.
We'll probably be officially burnt out and ready for something else at that point.
Yeah.
Or it will be 5 months later and we'll be starting a new Satisfactory playthrough because 1.2 is out or whatever.
1.2 is out.
Do you want to do some table talk?
We should. It's been a while.
I need to get into this Crown and Cola.
So we've done some actual playing where we've had almost a quorum of players in our online game. And for context, I'm running an online game and an in-person game in the same world. And this past weekend, you had a crossover?
Sort of, yeah.
And I was anticipating, and I had people lined up to actually have conversations via messages or something like that, and nobody bit. They just waved and continued on.
Yeah, I kind of had a sort of a prepared thing for it that I was going to have so important to say, Telson's wife plays a character in both of those campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And in our game, she's playing sort of originally I thought she was going to be like an Oathbreaker paladin. I'm not sure what she is now, a Reclamation Project paladin. But she's,
yeah.
She's gone from, I don't do magic anymore, and, kind of wishy-washy to, I heard a voice in a room that one time and this guy's got some armor. So I guess I'm a paladin again now. One of the things that I was going to do, because you'd mentioned that one of those players from the other game might try to speak to me psychically, was then have a sidebar conversation with Cindy's character from our game, Ren, that she wasn't taking part in. It's like when somebody calls and you pick up the phone, but it's not for you, and you're having the conversation with your wife, where it's like, I don't know who it is. It was going to be this sort of, Ren, I think your God's talking to me again. I don't know. I'm hearing voices. Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, for a little bit of context, actually, she asked me for some kind of a sign from her God because she wanted to progress the character in that direction.
Yeah.
And it was already almost there, but yeah, it would have been a funny thing to have like a one-way conversation. It was be especially interesting because of the way that I've set up the world, that time doesn't flow quite linearly. To have, you know, them have a conversation with you and then have the thing on Sunday and have you have a conversation with them, but it'd be two different conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. If I ever have the inclination to do this kind of thing again, where I have two groups going through sort of the same content at the same time, I just won't, because it's fun and it's interesting, but it's like a whole lot of work that nobody sees, right? Cindy has kind of a window on both campaigns, and for that reason, you know, she's like, "This is really quite impressive," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I don't think anyone else even knows it's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things too, where like the last time you tried to do this, you'd gotten to the point where you're trying to micromanage time,
Yeah.
right? Which is just like nobody's paying attention to the time anyway.
Nope.
So, you know, I don't know how many days ago that thing happened.
Nope. And now you really don't, because it isn't real. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm interested to know. Like, I know that we haven't gotten a whole lot of sort of lore dump stuff. That's actually coming in the next session. But I'm curious to know what you think of what's happening.
So I want to preface this because I want to make sure you're not taking it the wrong way. These are discussions, not complaints or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some contributing factors that have nothing to do with you that I think are sort of leading to where I am here. I wouldn't say I'm bouncing off of it.
It's close, though.
What's happening is that, I mean, we missed a lot of sessions just due to absences and stuff like that. So it's been hard for us to gain traction, and I know that's basically the story of every adult D&D group. We also have some players in our group that has like significantly changed the dynamic, I think, compared to some of our old groups. So, you know, one of the things that you'd mentioned in the couple of show docs that maybe we didn't even record this was the topic of dungeons and sort of how they're seen as a bit of a grind in kind of the modern game. And I found almost the entire campaign so far having been a bit like that. And maybe not a grind, because, you know, there's negative connotations with that, but like a bit of a Skinner box. You know what a Skinner box is?
The name is familiar, and I can't remember why.
Yeah, so basically, I can't remember the name of it. Doctor psychological experiment where, you know, you basically have a like an animal in a cage with a button, and you sort of condition them that pushing that button gets you something, right? And it's commonly used as sort of a way of framing things like addiction and stuff like that as it comes into like social gaming and microtransactions and sort of gotcha games and stuff like that. It's a relevant thing and an interesting thing to read about. But what I've found with our game so far is that it hasn't yet felt like collaborative storytelling. You know, like you asked for a little bit of information about our characters, and aside from like some window dressing, none of that has really mattered to this point in the game because our characters aren't in the world that, you know, their backstory sort of pertains to. And, you know, there'll be some ties and that'll come interesting. But we also have like a couple players in a group that I just don't think play that way. Like they're not old school grognards, but like for me, I've struggled with there's a hallway. Do you walk down it? Yes, I walk down it. You know, okay. Open a door, walk down a hallway, a little bit of exposition. Open a door, walk down a hallway. Here's an item. Open a door, walk down a hallway. Okay, why are we doing this, right? Like it's just hasn't hooked me yet. And and I want to be clear that that doesn't mean I haven't found the story or the world or the stuff that you've created interesting. Just sort of the mechanical process of getting to connect to it has been hard for me to sort of vibe off of. And like I say, a lot of contributing factors. there was a little bit of sort of that characterization for my character. Oh, there's this place that, was part of my backstory because you asked us to do a little bit of homework, name a few places. And, it showed up, one of these places, but it was in such a way that I didn't even register at first that like, oh, this is significant for my character. It was just open a door, a weird thing, open a door, another weird thing. And that weird thing just happened to have a connection to some of the information that I sent to you. And it took a while to click. I think I had to ask you, wait a minute, I know something about that, right? Because you gave me a little poke in chat. So, it's too early for me to draw any lasting conclusions. And I'm very much still enjoying playing D&D. And I'm just not sure that I'm as engaged with the story and world and characters that we're playing as much as I am with just hanging out with you guys right now. But that's still enough. That's still enough for me to sort of stay and be involved in it. I get that, we really haven't gotten to the point yet where our characters are going to have any sort of agency. So it's been a lot of implicit leading us around by the nose and a few instances of explicit stuff where it's like, oh, we're going to make a decision to go outside. Oh, no, you're not, because there's a giant thing out there. Oh, okay. I guess we're stuck in this dungeon then. I guess we'll go deeper. We don't know why we want to or care to, but I guess we'll go deeper,
Yeah. That's one of the struggles that I'm having with an online game in general, because the pace is a bunch slower. And because I have the in-person group as well, like the contrast is quite stark.
Yeah.
To the point where like they have gotten significantly ahead, right?
Sure.
Where they have like bits and pieces of the story and they're starting to do stuff and the world is changing around them. But sort of the funny thing is that my original plan actually was that you guys were going to go out and fight the giant flying turtle. It's like there's a funny kind of a thing, because I think that both Rich and Ben approach the game an awful lot like they do EverQuest, right? Like they approach it very much as a game, which is fine. It's just a slightly different approach, because you and I originally approached it like that as well, and I'm sort of coming around to the idea of approaching it more like a story. Right. And I know, like, from the impression that I get from you is that you approach it very much like it is a story, right? There's combat that happens and that's fine. But it's a very different way of approaching it. It's difficult to sort of meld those two things. Funny thing, I think that you would actually enjoy the in-person group a lot more than the online group.
Probably. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with the players that you have at the table too. And again, this isn't a criticism at any of the players at our table, and as a DM, you kind of have to sort of frame your game and what you're doing around the players that we have. So it would be inappropriate for you to do something that catered explicitly to me at the expense of somebody else's enjoyment and stuff too. So that's not what I'm asking out of any of this, but I do think that's sort of the case. I got thinking about it, trying to, as I was recapping in my head where we've gotten so far, right? And our characters have only made one decision since we started the campaign, and it felt completely superficial because it was a choice between which one of these communities do you want to go to, at which point we are instantly diverted. And we haven't really made a decision since. Like we've made decisions like which hallway do you want to go down, which, who's going to take this item, but we haven't really interacted in a two direction sort of thing with the world yet. And again, because we've missed so much time, part of that is just like we're still new here. We're still trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We haven't really, like, we're just starting to meet some NPCs now that are kind of interesting and have some mystery and story around them that we want to dig at. But intentionally, almost like the initial NPCs that we met were these one-dimensional kind of cartoonishly simple people that maybe are the way they are as part of the mystery of what the world is and stuff. So there wasn't anything to sink our teeth into there. And then we immediately jumped into essentially a dungeon where we didn't meet anybody until like the last couple of campaigns, or last couple of sessions rather. So we really haven't had an opportunity to explore any of those other sort of traditional pillars of role playing, just because we haven't yet. So it is too early for me to draw any sort of lasting conclusions or make any broad statements about what our game is and isn't. All I can say now is based on what we've done so far, I've found myself struggling with the engagement a little bit and kind of bouncing off the mechanical delivery of it all for various reasons. Still absolutely enjoy hanging out with, don't have anything I'd rather be doing on a Sunday night kind of thing. But when you touched on the thing in our show notes a couple things ago about dungeons and the grind, it was like, oh, yeah, that kind of ties into some of the things that I've been thinking about our game. And I don't know if we want to discuss that in any detail or not, but
yes and no. Mostly yes. There's right. Like I remember, first of all, I got that from a YouTube video that I was watching of a younger TM guy. I don't know his name. I'm sorry. Whose content I literally cannot watch just because he's too high energy. But it was a really interesting take on it, where he was talking about like old school dungeons were things like the Tomb of Horrors, where like you enter the dungeon and you're immediately afraid, like I'm going to lose my character, like I'm going to die. People would run away from stuff more almost as like first reaction, which is one of the things I was really sort of surprised by when you got to the second level of the dungeon that you're in. And it's like, okay, so this thing drops from the ceiling and it looks kind of like a cross between a praying mantis and an ant, and everybody's like, okay, run away. And I'm like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
part of
I
that was
guess
we were down a player at the time too, right? You sort of hinted that it was,
it was tough.
Yeah. And you made some adjustments and stuff like that too, as we've run into similar situations. But I think part of that ties into the idea of dungeons and how they fit into the modern game. And how people play D&D. And part of this is a system thing. Part of it is a cultural thing, I think. Like I look back at the old D&D stuff and how people typically engaged with it, sort of Gygax era stuff. And to me, like that's a board game. That's not even, or that's wargaming. Like that's very close to its chainmail roots, right? Like there wasn't, yes, people played roles and stuff like that, but I think a lot of players of that era and ilk didn't really sort of internalize and inhabit the role. They didn't really become their characters. It was, ironically enough, playing those games much more like a lot of people play modern video games, where you're playing not nameless hero that you try and sort of channel yourself into, but I'm playing Geralt of Rivia. This is a character that is my character, but it's not me, and blah, blah, blah. If you think of it like a miniature on a board and, oh, my miniature died, or, whatever, like engaging with the mechanics and the combat. And to be clear, when you look at sort of the books of that era too, like the focus was very much on combat mechanics and things like that. It wasn't on the theater kids hadn't gotten involved yet, right? I mean, let's call it what it is, right?
Yeah. Yes. It was still math nerds. It was still accounting, the game.
Yeah. The game had two pillars, racism and combat.
Yeah, largely true. There was definitely a sprinkling of misogyny in there as well.
Yeah, a little bit of exploration. And yes, I mean, some people chose to role play and stuff like that, but a lot of people didn't, and that's fine. There's no one right way. But in the modern day, I think the idea of what this is and why people choose to play it now and what they're looking out of for it, what they are looking for out of it has changed. Whether that's the theater kids getting involved, or the influence of things like Critical Role and stuff like that, where it has become very much a a vehicle for storytelling, a vehicle for role playing in a much more literal sense. And the other pillars are still there, combat, exploration, things like that, but they're a part of the mix rather than the focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I very much enjoy that sort of more modern take myself, and with the groups that I play, that's sort of with the mix of players that I have, what I aim to do a little bit more. And what we've been doing with this group feels a little bit more like the game that you were describing playing with that other in-person group, where you're like, these guys are all grognards, and you're trying to role play, but they don't seem to be biting on it. And it's like, I kind of feel like you described yourself feeling in that situation, but not to the point where I'm like considering not playing or anything. Just where I'm saying, oh, this is a little bit different, right? Like you take Chris out of the situation, you take my wife out of the situation, at least for now, and that shifts the dynamic a little bit of the group. And
Yeah. And well, and for me as well, I've been, because I prepared, like the stuff that I prepared was to sort of get you to here for a reason. But honestly, I was expecting to be where we're at now, sort of in session 3.
November, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't mind that. It's not that that's a problem. It's just that it is like it shifted the focus, and it also because, and one of the reasons that things looked a little one dimensional when we started is because I literally kicked it off, because if I don't start, we'll never start. So a lot of the stuff was sort of like, all right, yeah, it's like the Hollywood Western town sets.
Yes.
Where it's like, these are buildings, but they all only have one wall and it faces the street. So don't open any doors. Whereas now it's been fleshed out a little bit more. And some of it has been in response. Oh my God. So I introduced I can't tell you too much because there's spoilers involved, but I introduced an NPC to the other group who was answering some questions, right? And when I did that in person, Natalie literally gave me a stream of consciousness series of questions that lasted for, I kid you not, 5 solid minutes of just questions. To the point where I said, you're going to have to write all of these down because A, I don't have the answers to all of them yet. And B, like literally you haven't taken a breath for 5 minutes. So we had a back and forth on Discord, I think, that went like 2 solid pages of her just asking questions. Which was, it was both gratifying to know that she was that interested, and at the same time it's like, oh yeah, this really focuses me on figuring out like how does shit work. All right. There's a couple of questions that you guys have brought up over the course of our play too that I've written down the answers to that you haven't revisited about the answers to, which is fine, right? It's there. Should it ever come up. But I think, assuming that we play tomorrow night, I think there's going to be some, what would you call it? Some direction, I guess, some point of decision making that might get a little bit complicated too, because some of the stuff that the other group is doing might influence what you want to do. And it might be like, oh shit, I need to get everybody together to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to work around.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, without getting into spoilers that I don't need to know yet, and I don't want it spoiled for me, my suggestion to you would be let the groups exist on their own. Right? Like, don't bend and mold and shape and occasionally force and square peg round hole 2 games that are going to go on for 6 months or a year or whatever, so that the one session that we play together when we get together in the summer makes sense, right?
No, and it won't. I mean, it kind of will, and that's going to be basically like everybody gets sort of zapped to one place. The other thing is that like if we were doing strict timekeeping, like they're probably a week ahead.
Yeah,
right?
But
if we're doing,
you know,
which we're not,
and where I'm getting like if if our players or me or anybody else starts asserting ourselves in terms of decision making in the story that we want to explore and stuff like that, like, you need to be prepared as a DM to just abandon all of what you had planned and be like, oh, these guys want to, you know, go start a tavern in Sprocket Hollow, and that's going to be what they're doing for, you know. I don't think we're going to do that kind of thing. Obviously, again, collaborative storytelling, sort of a two-way thing.
Sure.
And you need to have your fun too and have sort of your creative outlet. But we need to get to the point as a group where we feel like it's our story too. And it doesn't feel like that yet.
No. Well, no,
you know,
because
it wouldn't.
you need to get because you need to get to the place where the story starts.
Like we literally, you know, we got to what's being set up as to be our base of operations, I think, which is usually like a session 2, session 3 kind of thing, right? Like this, oh, you're attuned to this tower. It's yours now. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
and you are.
Now story can happen.
Yeah. Well, now you have somewhere to work out of. Yeah, which might make things change as well. But that's fine. I mean, I'm up for improvising all kinds of stuff.
I do have a question, because this isn't spoilers necessarily now. Does the other group on the other side of the chasm have an identical tower?
No.
Okay.
Not even close.
Okay.
No, you're actually this assuming that we go where I think we're going to go tomorrow, you will actually hear a little bit of their story. Because that's like the group that you've just met, they're also interacting with, not quite in the same way.
Okay.
I'm hoping that group, that organization is going to be sort of the glue between you. I hope. We'll see. I don't know. You might just go to war with them, which will be hilarious, considering that one of them just chased away a mind flare.
Or we'll go to war with the other group, and our summer session will be PvP.
That could happen. It's possible. It would be, I think that you would have trouble with that, to be honest.
Oh, probably. Yeah. No, probably about it.
Yeah. It would be interesting watching Cindy try to fight herself. That's always the interesting thing of when the two groups come together.
Yeah. Well, we're getting up there time-wise, so I had something that I wanted to talk about tabletop adjacent. I think we'll probably save that for next recording as well, and get into some parting gifts, unless you have anything else you want to add around this.
I don't think that I do. I think I'm happy with where we're at. I would like to ask, is your Tuesday game still going on? And how's it going?
It is. We had sort of some speed bumps in terms of attendance and stuff, so things bogged down for a little while. It was rough going for a little while. I wanted to do some things a little bit different here. I wanted to give the players a little bit more direction, like literal direction over the story, improvise sort of around what they were making rather than, you know, like, I mean, to a certain extent, most games are on rails, whether they're, you know, rails in air quotes or not. But I wanted to give them the opportunity to sort of shape and mold their arcs a little bit more literally. And that worked a little bit, but it sort of led to some indecision and pacing issues and stuff like that. So I've had to dial it back a little bit now. So I find myself kind of not literally leading them around by the nose, but one of the sort of self-critiques that I had about the last sort of multi-year long campaign I did with them is by the time we got to the end of it, even though I was giving my players all sorts of decisions and agency, I felt that the decisions and stuff that they were making were so obvious, right, based on the things that I'd set up, that I wasn't really giving them interesting decisions. You know, when you get to the point of we're saving the world,
well, you've got two choices: save it or don't.
Do you want to continue saving the world, or do you want to do something else? Right, like, you know, those big decisions. You know, so
press X to pay respects.
Yeah. So I want to try to avoid that, at least earlier on. And a lot of that was sort of bringing the stakes and sort of the story down to like a street level kind of thing, and that has gone reasonably well. But we had a couple of rough patches. I turned some knobs. It's been going a little bit better, and I think actually we had one of the most enjoyable sessions this week that I've had in a long time, which was refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was some of that sort of quirky happenstance that just happens when people roll dice and you sort of improvise around it. A lot of the focus of the game has been sort of actions and consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been sort of involved at just around the edges of, there's this sort of a lot of power brokers in this city that are sort of struggling with each other for various control and, you know, shit kind of going on. They kind of got caught up in those tangled webs at the beginning. Literally my sort of mini campaign name for it is Tangled Webs, you know, an Age of Arrival story kind of thing. Where I literally threw them off a cliff session 1 because they, you know, were tossed into bags and being disposed of, and they survive that, and then they decide how they want to sort of react to that. Do they want to get involved and find out who's had it out for them, or do they want to run and hide, or, you know, completely up to them. And they've been engaging with it, trying to be good guys without getting involved, and I've kind of come up with an interesting way of getting them involved. I've set up this sort of bad guy character in it, which is very much like a Moriarty, Xanatos Gambit kind of, like, there's a person that's pulling a lot of strings and he's manipulating things in such a way where regardless of the outcome, there's a good chance it's going to play out in their favor one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And they were initially an antagonist. They were the person that was probably responsible for initially rounding them up and capturing them pre-session 0, and then session 1 throwing them off the cliff to dispose of them. And, you know, the first half dozen sessions or so, there was a lot of, okay, let's try and figure out what the hell's going on, who this person is, why they have it out for us, what they want. And then 3 or 4 sessions ago, I kind of flipped the table a little bit and had that character send them a letter that basically said, a person at this gala is going to die unless you guys intervene. You know, I think that rather than me try and clean up the mess and you know, tie up this loose thread, maybe we should go into business together. And rather than, you know, try and turn them to the dark side or anything like that, I'm just sort of playing into common interest kind of stuff, giving them a situation that once they know about it, they would try and step in and prevent bad things from happening, even if it plays to the advantage of this person who has been their primary antagonist. As part of that, they went to this gala thing. They sort of prevented the assassination. It involved a little bit of resurrection as part of it. Tried to figure out who was behind it. And the setup that I had was that it was a magistrate. His wife actually poisoned him because she was being blackmailed essentially with the life of her daughter. Her daughter had been captured and she was given a choice. Your husband dies or your daughter, who you absolutely care about more, is going to die. You pick. And it got to the point where she poisoned him at this gala, and they weren't able to prevent it. They didn't catch on to what she had going on, but they were there to sort of deal with the aftermath, bring him back to life, deal with sort of the poisoning situation. That led to some funny stuff. So they decided, as they learned about what was happening after that, that the consequences for them intervening was that this woman's daughter was probably going to die. She was being held as sort of a guarantee of making sure that this was going to happen. And now that they've intervened, other bad people in the city were going to carry that out. So they ended up tracing her back to a casino that another one of the bad guys was running, and they had her sort of locked up in the basement down near the vaults. And they decided to sort of have a verbal altercation with the guy that was responsible, that ended up turning into basically a massacre where a bunch of the regular patrons of the casino got killed.
Ooh.
So as part of trying to save the life of one person, they put another person's life in jeopardy. By trying to fix that, they've now accidentally got a bunch of other people killed, not directly through their actions, but as a pretty sort of logical consequence or a leap of, the stuff that they've done. They ended up saving the girl in our last session, and hijinks sort of ensued down in the basement, which led to them failing miserably on some stuff and then succeeding stupendously to the point where they basically ended up robbing the casino vault and walking away with, stuff to make them, in the top 10 richest people in the city.
Ooh. So
Yeah.
now they're power brokers.
Maybe. I mean, depends on what they're going to do with it, right? But they ended up in this situation where they're trying to save somebody and be the good guys. And I sort of put the dilemma of well, is robbing from somebody who's bad also bad? And I have a couple of characters who they're not necessarily morally gray. I would consider them, one of them in particular is just a little bit more like the moral compass just sort of is broken a little bit. So it isn't that he's intentionally evil or anything like that. He just doesn't really get it. So he finds himself doing questionable things without really thinking about it too much. Pretty interesting character. So yeah, they just sort of absconded with a whole bunch of money, saved the girl, left a bunch of carnage and bodies behind, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But it just was one of those situations where like they're trying to open doors, they roll a bunch of nat ones, they fail. No, sorry, let me back up because it is actually quite hilarious. Just wrapping up combat, I have one character who isn't a pacifist, but she doesn't want to kill people. At least part of her character doesn't want to kill people. So she was trying to explicitly do non-lethal damage. And we got to the point where there was the one guy left who had 2 hit points. And I said up front, okay, this guy's basically dead. What are you going to do? And she's like, I gotta punch him as hard as I can. She's playing a monk. She rolled a nat 20. So I basically, just because we needed a little bit levity at that moment in the game, like, outside of the characters, I said, okay, well, I'm going to respect the nat 20. So you non-lethally punch through this person's chest and tear out their beating heart. You have it in their hand, and then you put it back, and it works for some reason. At which point, another one of the characters come by, sees the person that they fought as an obvious bad person, and this beating heart is just sort of literally falling out of his chest at this point because you tore his rib cage wide open. And she goes with a knife and goes, bloop. And basically the heart explodes. They were already a mess as of other things that happened. It involved a druid shapeshifted into like a giant toad, and they were slimy and awful and bloody. And then literally this heart exploded in front of them, all over them. So then immediately after that, they tried to rescue the girl, right? So they bust into this room where this girl's been locked up, and they look like serial killers. Covered in blood and gore and weapons held and dripping. And I basically have them do some checks, right? Some persuasions, and they roll nat ones. And it's like this woman locks herself in a bathroom because it's literally the deadline where this girl was supposed to be killed. She knew that somebody was coming down here at 3 a.m. to kill them unless her stepfather was killed. And they're busting into the room at like 2 minutes to 3 a.m. covered in blood and gore, and just so they walk in, they fail those checks. Eventually they're able to talk her out of this. And then they like, well, the vault doors are right there. Do we want to take a look? And they figure out sort of a simple puzzle that I had around it, where it was sort of a modernish take on some of the weird high fantasy stuff, where it was basically like the door from Sneakers, where it was like a voice print to get in. So they'd recreated the voice of one of the people that they'd killed using some magic. And that got them to the first couple of doors. And then there was the one for the main vault, which was a little bit more advanced. The druid decided, oh, well, what would happen if I just cast reduce on this door?
Oh.
And he's like, I don't want to do it yet. Like, what do I think would happen? And he rolled Arcana, and he rolled basically a nat 1. And I said, well, it's possible that this door might have some protections against that, but you're not too sure. And he just said, all right, well, I'll do it anyway. And I just made up on the spot that the spell, like the door basically took the spell, reflected it onto him, and amplified it. So our druid, who was a gnome to begin with, is now like a teacup gnome. And instead of it lasting for 3 minutes or however long it's supposed to last, it's now going to last for like 3 days. But in doing that, he, got to see the arcane runes on the bottom edge of the door that was sort of going to clue him into what the spell was or what the spell needed to open the door. And they ended up busting into it and walking out with a whole shitload of money. So it was a lot of fun. Which was nice because we'd had some slower sessions up to that point. The gala was a nice sort of fish out of water thing leading up to that. I did intentionally sort of set it up that way where they were basically playing the parts of some like out of town aristocrats that had invitations to this gala to get in and do it. And we spent about 2/3 of a session getting one of the players basically like a spa glow up before going to this gala, to the point where they were like making preparations. They had a certain amount of money that they had available to them. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to save somebody's life. We could buy diamonds to use this revivify spell that they just got as they leveled up. Mm-hmm. Or we could give this one squirrel character, not literally a squirrel, like her name is Squirrel, sort of a street rat type thing, a glow up to go to this gala, make her feel really pretty. And it's like, well, we'll get 1 diamond. That should be enough. And then they, did their spa day, and that was fun. They almost needed the 2nd diamond, but through some clever mechanics, managed to pull it off. It was one of those situations where I'm not trying to be a dick as a DM, but like I set up a situation where there was very specific mechanics. They were poisoned. It was a poison that was acting over time. Revivify, if you read the spell text versus the much higher level spell like Raise Dead, Revivify doesn't explicitly remove any of the conditions that might have led to death. I telegraphed that enough that one of the players caught on and said, oh, well, I suppose if we just brought him back to life, he'd die again. How do we deal with this poison situation? Which they didn't have like just a cure poison or lesser restoration or anything like that. So they had to get a little bit creative, but it worked out. It involved somebody creating water inside their digestive system to make them vomit a bunch of stuff up, and a high enough medicine roll that they didn't make them explode.
Which is generally not recommended.
Yeah. And then the druid used feign death or whatever it is on him, convinced him to willingly accept being made to look dead for an hour. Because that does explicitly get rid of the poison at the end. But anyway, yeah, my session's been going reasonably well. We had some speed bumps, but the game has been fun. I've got great players for the most part. And, I'm finding in general the online games aren't doing it for me the way that they were, like creatively. And we'll get into that next time we record.
Yeah.
But, that's not the fault of our game or the players or the way the sessions have been going. It's more just a playing online only kind of thing.
Yeah. Online games are different.
They are indeed. All right, let's wrap it up with some parting gifts.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
It is pretty rare that I stumble across a channel when it is new because, again, I don't really pay much attention to the algorithm. I don't look at my sort of home feed in YouTube very often. And it was only because I was watching YouTube videos on my TV, and the Google TV app for YouTube makes it really hard to just look at a chronological sort of feed of videos from your people you're subscribed to. It's there, but you got to go through a bunch of steps to get to it. And I happened to stumble across a cooking YouTube channel. Tanya and I used to watch a lot of Food Network stuff, like way back in the day. We haven't really got into it too much recently, but, I enjoy cooking content. And the channel, this guy's name is Chef Zappy. Literally, the channel has been out for like 2 months. I think it only has like 26 or 27,000 followers, which is, pretty good for a channel that has 2 months. I assume he has some other sort of social following. Like he's an executive chef, has his own restaurant kind of thing. And I've just found he's only got like half a dozen, maybe 8 videos. I've just found his content so refreshing. Like it's good to consume as part of like, you know, cooking content, but it doesn't have much of that sort of snobby angle that a lot of cooking shows have, right? Like one of his videos was about a potato dish that you've probably had 17 different variations of it. Usually people call it funeral potatoes or party potatoes or something like that. It's like a hash brown casserole.
Okay. Yep.
You know, so he's not afraid to like do stuff like that. You know, this thing that is known. I used to make him when he was a kid or something like that, or his mom. But he is just one of those refreshingly like positive people.
Oh, those are so rare.
They are, you know, like he's chill. Like, you know, the show is absolutely vibes more than content, but the content is also interesting. And he does a really good job of explaining a lot of stuff that like a lot of cooking shows typically don't. Which is also refreshing. I think he's probably like Italian Indian descent, just you know, based on like superficial appearance and some of the things that he's talked about on the show. But he just has that sort of a lot of the things that people like about newly elected mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani. Like if you've ever heard him talk,
I have a lot.
Yeah, like, you know, the way he speaks is sort of like a charming, almost like self-effacing kind of sincerity and positivity and whatnot to him that you just don't see in politics anymore. This guy's a little bit like that. And don't get me wrong, like, you know, cooking shows aren't as dire as like the modern political landscape, but like, you know, this guy like, and he leaves things in the edit that just like, he's doing a goofy smile while he's waiting for something, you know, like just, you can tell that he enjoys what he does. You tell that he enjoys sharing it with other people. And, you know, rather than trashing on a bunch of stuff, which is 90% of content creation nowadays, it is just genuinely positive and refreshing. So I hope his channel takes off. Chef Zappy, Zappi. Check it out. He's new enough that I could say that, hey, a few subscribers that we send his way might actually help out. Normally I'm plugging things that have like 13 million followers or something like that. So this is nice. I encourage you to check it out. I can't speak to what his future content's going to be like, but for a guy that is only produced like a half a dozen videos so far in the last couple of months, the production quality is high enough that it is enjoyable to watch for those merits. And as a personality, he just seems fun, seems refreshing, and we need more of that.
We certainly do. Well, in that vein, I mean, I had something that I had written down in here, but I think that I will save it for next time.
We've only been at it for 2 hours. I think we have time to get into the 4 or 5 other things we wanted to talk about.
I mean, we do, but if we do, I'm going to float away or explode.
Well, it has been good talking to you, man. Hopefully we don't, you know, I jest. Hopefully it's not another several months and, you know, 6 failed recordings later before we actually do this again. I promise that I'm going to try and edit this and get it out in the next week. I don't promise that I will. I'm just going to promise that I'll try. And
that'll be cool. I mean, this honestly, this has been, pardon me, this has been very helpful for me because I've been struggling for the last week, and this was very, very nice.
Nice.
So that's my parting gift. Talk to your friends.
Ian will be quite happy too. You seem to be looking forward to us putting something else out.
It's funny, you know, like there are a couple of people around town that I've mentioned that we do this to, and when we go a while without releasing one, they do ask me about it. So we do have listeners. So hello to you listeners out there.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, Mr. Editor, please include the funny joke that I made at the beginning.
Did we make any funny jokes this episode?
I don't think we did, but I mean, that's a teaser for people thinking they missed something.